So why is my boy stanced up like this? Can we take a few moments to talk about that? Because I feel like the animators that were working on this episode, they had one design philosophy, and they wanted to make this character very Astafold-like, aka the character from Fate. And honestly, I find it pretty hilarious. Apparently, there is some form of controversy and drama around this character design and the character and stuff. Apparently, people have been doing manga panels back and forth, basically saying that, like, why did they make this character a lot more, let's say, quote-unquote, thick in comparison to the manga equivalent? And I'm just like, okay. Like, regardless, it's funny. Like, it legit is funny. But let's get into the actual point of what this series is. Pushing that aside for a second, and the design of the main male character, Lloyd, there's 2 points in this episode that really made me fall in love with this first episode. And that first point was this sword fighting segment, where you see Lloyd go up against his mentor and how they just start practicing the sword. And it legitimately is an incredible sequence. Like, it is not as flashy as, like, a lot of colors and stuff, but the sword sequence that goes on within this episode is honestly, it goes hard. Like, it had no business going as hard as it did, with the goofy art as well on top of that. It was legitimately an incredible sequence. Like, look at this. Like, look at this. Like, the little sequence. This is just a practice wooden sword fight and all that. It did not need to, like, look this good and detailed. It could have just been very quick and simple. But the animators had a mission, and they definitely wanted to make this sequence really stand out. And I was like, yo, this is pretty freaking cool. Like, it's actually a really cool thing. And I decided to look up the studio that's working on this. And the studio is Sumugi Akita Animation Lab. And as you can see here, they've only worked on 2 projects in the past. They've worked on this current series that I am talking about here. Also, they have worked on Meiji Gekken 1874, which I've never heard of. I've never watched it. And looking at the rankings, it's very clear that, this studio has not made any, really home run like series that really have just taken the ball and thrown it over the fence or whatever and just went on a home run. It seems like the studio hasn't done that yet so far, because it is a very young and early studio, just seeing what they've kind of worked on, at least what's listed here on my anime list. Now, I'm not saying that the rankings are, the main thing that should decide how popular something is or how good a certain anime is on my anime list, but it is a good margin to kind of see maybe some of the community of the anime or the anime community, how they're feeling about certain anime. And in this case, you can see that most people probably are either not caring about this series, or they're dropping it thanks to probably the character design of the main male character. But regardless, with that being said though, let's get into the other segment that really won me over. And that was definitely this scene right here, where MC basically is just falling in love with magic. Like, they legitimately, are infatuated with magic, and they decide to take damage just to be able to understand what is happening to their body. And this segment really just concretes the overall personality of the MC and just how unhinged they are in comparison to, what they were normally acting throughout the episode. Because at first glance, when you see the MC and how they're acting, it makes them seem like they love magic, which is fine. We have a lot of main male characters, main female characters within stories that are in love with magic. They get reincarnated, they learn magic, etc. This is a common theme. It's a common, element to a character. And so, that being one of the themes of the character, I was like, okay, it's a typical, story beat, someone really enjoying magic, wanting to learn more magic. Hell, think about Free Ren, think about Fern and all that, they love exploring and learning magic and stuff. So, factoring all that in, I was just like, I didn't think too much about it. But then we got to this scene where he takes damage purposely just to be able to analyze the magic and gets all crazy about it and happy he took the damage and all that. And then it's just like, oh, I know how to cast it now. It's really creepy. Like, it showcases this other mentality and other side to the MC that, was kind of hiding under the surface. A shallow puddle, but still hiding under the surface. Like, we now could see that some of the things that might have been a little bit off throughout this episode came to the surface with that scene, and that the MC is legitimately just a crazy individual, and it gives more context to this beginning sequence, which honestly kind of really shocked me with just how comedic it was put, especially with just how dark and grim the first segment of the episode tried to convey it. And let's talk about that, because it conveys with the second part. Basically, the episode literally starts off with black and and white. You see someone, looks like they've gotten into a fight, they're bleeding out and all that. You can't really tell because obviously it's black and white. And they're being berated and called a commoner, someone that, is not worth anything, someone that will never be able to accomplish and learn high-tier magic because they don't have a lot of talent, they don't have a noble birth, all this type of stuff. This is what, the beginning of the episode kind of forces into you to understand, like the synopsis, so to speak. Maybe, why the MC got, reincarnated in the first place. And thanks to these actions, he does end up dying. You see this individual, throw a fireball at him, he catches on fire, he dies, and despite, that, he starts being like, oh, this is cool magic, I wish I could have mastered it. He doesn't have any anger or animosity towards the people that killed him. He's more, in love with the feeling of what the magic felt like on his body, which was a very off moment, obviously, at the beginning of the episode, which goes back to, the second half, but it was just, like, more or less, maybe it was just a comedic effect, just want to throw comedy in there, because it's like, this is what he wants with his second life, to be a master of magic. So I was like, okay, I went with it, I didn't think too much about it, but I was just like, it is kind of weird that, someone killed you, and you're not a little bit angry about it. It's like, there's so much more you could have accomplished, and then we got to the second half, and I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. So the reason why he died in the first place in his previous life is because he allowed the magic to hit him, just to learn how the magic is. And it's just, okay. Like I said, very unhinged behavior from the MC. Now, with all of that being said, there is something that does need to be talked about, and that is the aspect of the reincarnation of what the story is doing. So, typically, when we have, like, an isekai series, or a reincarnated series, all that type of stuff, or, transported to another world, a character dies, let's say, in the modern day Japan or something, and then they're put into a fantasy world. Or they die in, the modern day Japan, and they're put into a game or something. You get the point. It's typical theme, typical trope in anime. You see it all the time. And, I expected that, obviously, to be the exact same. But the beginning, starting off with magic, and then the character dies and gets reincarnated, he did not, in fact, get reincarnated into a different world. In fact, he just got a second chance at life in the exact same world with the exact same magic. Because at the beginning of the episode, you have soldiers talk about, like, magic. They're talking about how the prince in general is very gifted and potentially is, like, the father of all magic. And so, this is the same name we heard at the beginning of the episode before the MC died in his first life. So, we know that the magic system and the power system is the exact same. So, assuming everything, this is definitely the exact same world, unless it's an alternate reality, but I'm assuming it's the same world. So, he didn't necessarily transfer from, let's say, a world without magic to a world with magic. This is a character that already knows about the history of the world to a degree, and was just transported into an entirely, new area within his world. For instance, just like a different country, so to speak. So, I think that's really interesting. I don't think it's, like, something that is mind-blowing, but I do think that it's pretty cool, and a very different take to the normal standard of, like, transported or reincarnated into another world. It's where they're literally just reincarnated in the exact same world that they died in, which brings up, past problems. For instance, now that we know that the MC is in the same world, this beginning segment, I wonder how the MC will feel about his killer. I mean, it's clear he doesn't have animosity or anger, but, I mean, it makes you wonder, did he have loved ones? Did he have family? Did he have a mother, father, etc.? It makes you really wonder, will he be able to rekindle those old relationships that he potentially had in his previous life? There's a lot of things that come to mind thanks to this first segment of the episode. But, yeah, overall, I really do like, I was reincarnated as the 7th prince, so I can take my time perfecting my magical ability. Quite a mouthful of a title, but, you know how isekai is, or light novel titles, they have to be long to just basically describe what the story is about. I like it. I don't think that it is the best series I've seen of this year. I would not say it's better than Spice and Wolf, but once again, I am very biased when it comes to Spice and Wolf, so don't hold me to that one. I apologize, but regardless, it is a solid series. Once again, there is controversy about the MC's design, and I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but obviously people are always going to have designs with certain characters. It's kind of very reminiscent of, like, maybe design choices of Gushing Over Magical Girls from last season. So I'm just going to be like, it's just the typical individuals that, see a design, they don't even watch the series, and they complain about it. That's basically it. But, if, in fact, they did change the design so radically in comparison to the manga, that is hilarious, though. I could see why maybe manga readers or light novel readers would be upset if it was drastically changed, but at the same time, it's just like, clearly, thanks to the change, it is causing people to talk about the story. So, yeah, that is food for thought. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed my video and you want more content to appear in your subscription feed, then do subscribe and leave a like on the video. But with that, Chibi out.